This PowerPoint goes through physical records that scientists use to determine past and present climate change. So within this PowerPoint, we're going to go over 4 different major ways that scientists analyze those past records. The first one being ice cores. The polar regions of the world have been covered with ice throughout glacial history and therefore create layered histories of past climate change. To study ice cores, scientists actually drill into the ice as seen in the picture on the left. And what they obtain is shown in the picture in the middle. And scientists can obtain ice cores that represent the past hundreds of thousands of years. The ice core in the middle could be studied at this point. You can see the different layers located within that ice core. What scientists analyze are the atmospheric, chemical, and physical characteristics by using the trapped gases within air bubbles in the ice. So they can analyze things like the amount of oxygen and actually different isotopes of oxygen, carbon dioxide, methane, many different things. The graph on the right comes from research in Antarctica on the Vostok ice cores. The graph shows changes in temperature and CO2 concentration over the course of time, as well as dust, the amount of dust in the atmosphere. In order to ensure that they have accurate time periods, they use something called dating horizons, which are well-known events, such as particular volcanic eruptions that occurred, and these dating horizons are used to ensure accurate dating. The second thing we're going to look at are sediment records. As you can see in the photo on the right, these cores look very similar to ice cores and are drilled and obtained in the same way as ice. So scientists drill down, they obtain this core, and they take it back to their labs to study it. Sediments that are found in lakes and oceans can be used to determine climate over hundreds of millions of years. So this is even longer typically than our ice cores. Continental rocks can be used for an even greater period of time, sometimes up to billions of years. So sediment layers are formed in bodies of water where sediments and dead organisms drift down through the water and settle at the bottom, thus creating an historical record. Oxygen isotopes found in the shells of organisms such as diatoms, which you see on the left, and foraminifera, which are seen on the right, can be actually used to infer past water temperatures. In warmer water, lighter oxygen isotopes are evaporated, leaving the heavier isotopes for uptake into the shells of the organisms. So if you look at one particular layer and you find only heavier isotopes of oxygen in the shells, then you know that the water was warmer during that time period. Pollen is another thing that can be used. It can be obtained from sediment cores, and it gives scientists an indication of what type of plants were growing when the sediment was deposited. So scientists really have to use their knowledge of modern plants so that they can make inferences about past climate. Our third physical record are tree rings. The study of tree rings is known as dendrochronology. Similar to the ice and sediment cores that we have seen, scientists can also use a tree core to obtain cores for analysis from living trees, which you can see in the upper right-hand photo. So you can see the core coming out in this case. Scientists can also use a cross-section of a tree stump that's already dead, as you see in the bottom picture. Scientists can determine the age of the tree by counting the rings in the sample. In addition, they can look at the width of a ring. The greater the width of an individual ring, the greater the growth of the tree. Knowing the requirements for a specific species of tree is also important when scientists are analyzing tree rings, because some trees require wet conditions, whereas others may need warm temperatures, for example. So a wider band could indicate a good growing season, depending on the tree, whether that growth was due to wet or warm conditions. Scientists also can use microscopic analysis where they look at cell density, and for your summative assessment in this particular unit, you're going to look at that a little more closely on your own. The last physical record is known as banded iron formations, or BIFs. The banded iron formation that we see in the picture on the right is actually found in the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. BIFs are thought to have formed during the Proterozoic eon. The BIF that we see here in the museum is actually thought to be around 3 billion years old, so it's pretty old rocks. The Earth's early atmosphere contained very little free oxygen, while the oceans contained very high levels of dissolved iron from weathering of iron-rich volcanic rock. So this was a time before photosynthetic organisms, and really most of that oxygen in the atmosphere, the very little that there was, is thought to have come from volcanic eruptions. However, with the evolution of life on the planet, photosynthetic bacteria evolved and began producing oxygen. So the oxygen reacted with iron in the water to precipitate out magnetite, which is Fe3O4. So the formula for magnetite is Fe3O4. And this created the darker layers in the rock. In times when levels of dissolved oxygen dropped, a red layer of either silica or carbonate would result. So you can see these alternating bands of red and dark. The decrease in oxygen that would have led to these silicate or carbonate layers could have been due to seasonal changes or perhaps competition between the bacteria, which led to a decrease in the number of bacteria in the ocean, so less production of oxygen overall. So that's one, some of the thoughts about why there are those red bands. However, once all of the iron in the in the ocean water was used up, that is when oxygen began to accumulate into the atmosphere, leading to further evolution of land-based organisms. And here are my references for my slides. And again, you will be looking at these physical records in class over the next few weeks, or the next week, and you will also be using this information for your summative assessment. Thanks.